Hi everyone and welcome to your daily horoscope and tarot reading. Today we have a very active and powerful sky, and I know that I say this every single day, but today it's actually all about power because we have a newly formed but very powerful and significant celestial conversation taking place in the sky, and we are talking about Pluto, and the symbolism of Pluto is all about power, especially in the sign of Capricorn, where it might indicate our own personal powers. And this isn't just psychological power, because the sign of Capricorn is a very earthly sign and it has much to do with manifestation and our physical lives. So, this is psychological power basically, but which is manifested physically, which influences our material situations, our lives, our careers, the relations we have with other people. So it's all about power, even regarding the world stage, or better said, especially there, because Pluto in the sign of Capricorn represents the power that our leaders, authorities, the state have over us. But of course, that power is illusionary in nature because their powers are nothing without our consent, without us offering our powers freely to them. So Pluto, the symbol of power, also retrograde, meaning that its symbolism turns inwards. So we are not just becoming aware of the power games, but we also become very aware that it has also very much to do with us and our personal choices. So Pluto holds a celestial conversation of supreme harmony with Mercury and the Sun in the sign of Taurus. Now this is very important because both Capricorn and Taurus are earth signs, so this has very much to do with our material lives, or as our lives develop in a very material kind of way. So it is all about down to earth things, or at least how our inner values, our inner worth, and our inner power ultimately influences our everyday material physical lives. So this celestial conversation, this very beautiful trine between Mercury and Pluto, the Sun and Pluto, first of all represents truth, because that is one of the main tools that Pluto uses to guide us to embody our powers. And in this instance, this power has much to do with what we hold as valuable, what we love, what we attract, what we are attracted to, because it is the sun in the sign of Taurus, so it is our values, it is everything that we love, and the light of the sun, the light of our ration, that Mercury, is a very revelatory energy. It is greatly empowering our mental sphere, the practicality of our minds, of our thought processes. So every information that reaches us, may it be communication, may it be like an official source of information, like legislation perhaps, enters in our sphere of awareness, where we are invited to process it and make very important decisions, choices, or at least use this energy as an inner change to crystallize, to solidify, to ground our own personal values and what everything that we love, everything that we would like to have in our lives, all the big and small pleasures of life. May it have to do with the body, or may it have to do with just the soul, with the psyche, with the mind, because ultimately every type of pleasure, every type of value, every type of attraction, great influence on our material and physical lives, even our bodies ultimately, because our brains actually need that special hormone cocktail to make us feel alive, to make us feel be present in our lives. And ultimately, it provides our well being, how we can function both as psychological entities, as spiritual entities, and material entities. So, this is extremely important because this very powerful Pluto, speaking with the Sun and Mercury, is inviting us hold and observe what our normality is and how our present normality meets our preferences, meets everything that we love, meets everything that we wish to have in our lives. And this revelatory energy, which is very mental, which is very cerebral, which is inviting us to process everything, that can represent a big change in our lives. For once we change our priorities, for example, once we reconfigure our financial plans, once we reconfigure our priorities, because for example the Taurus and Scorpio axis has much to do with that and our relations to that. If some people all of a sudden figure out as an epiphany or whatever that their immediate goal is not to have all of the gadgets, all of that big holiday, all of the immediate pleasures of life, but rather to live a life debt free, well, then they're going to focus in the immediate future towards erasing their debts and sorting out their financial situation. And this can represent a huge and massive change, because if a lot of people are doing this in the present moment, well, then that changes a lot of things for the banks and for the external financial systems, for example. So in the immediate moment, this beautiful trine between Pluto and Mercury is ultimately provoking a massive change, a massive inner change regarding our value systems, and it is through this inner change, outer reality, the external value systems of humanity as a collective, or the value systems of our cultures, the countries, the specific region where we live in, is definitely going to be changing, and quite soon. Because the sun is also a very powerful manifester. Yes, it's not like Saturn, for example. There is no guarantee that it's going to manifest physically, as in the earthly sphere, but regardless, the sun can manifest. The sun is a powerful force of manifestation, because light is information basically, and when information reaches wherever it is destined to reach, then that information, the power of the light, so to speak, immediately changes and shifts everything. So that is already a powerful manifestation. That's why the sun is also associated with self-expression. For expressing yourself, expressing your inner truth, is basically like sharing your light, sharing who you are, manifesting your internal psychological configuration on the outside. But of course, another very powerful energy here is that Mercury also forms a square with Mars from Aquarius. This is a conversation of tension, but under the present moment circumstances, this is a very good and grounding energy, because Mars in Aquarius represents all our future hopes, dreams, and goals, and where our power, energy, and focus is, which is basically our social connections, online, the internet. Where right now in the present moment our greatest power is where we are in society, our social connections, so to speak. But at the same time, this is also our greatest limitation, not just our biggest reservoir of personal power in the present moment. This is also where all our limitations come and source from. So the power of the square is actually grounding, because it helps us stay in tune with reality. Well, it helps us adapt our plans in such a way, very rationally, very logically, so that we are not gonna be chasing windmills. Whatever we need to accomplish is possible and is not, contradicted by either, for example, legislation, social morality, or any other external influence. So this energy basically serves us to make sure that our future plans are actually viable and accomplishable physically, materially. Because otherwise, that trine between Mercury, Sun, and Pluto might tell us that, where there is a will, there is always a way, but but the way also has to be fair and not selfish, because ultimately it has to serve the greater good, and that's why the square between Mars and Mercury is actually beneficial in the present moment, even though it causes a lot of frustration, even though it causes a lot of stress, because we are being bombarded with all these different sources of information from the internet, from media, even from our circle of friends. Everyone's talking about pretty much the same subjects, everyone is concerned from the same things, even though the theories are totally different. But the focus that Mars in Aquarius is still the same. Everyone, their own individual unique way, is actually trying to fight for their futures. That's what we are doing, and this is already stressful, this is already super saturated, this is already quite depressive and irritative for some people. So this is one of the ways this square can represent frustration, stress, irritation, angry words ultimately, because it doesn't matter from which sign Mercury and Mars speak together in tension, that always represents angry words, lashing out, sharing your truth in a very, unrefined and rough manner. It can upset some people. It can lead to misinterpretations where some people might take it as criticism or judgment, and so this can also birth a lot of conflict, and it can also birth certain moments when your plans and your calculations, the way you want to manage your financial situation and your own values and your own worth, basically, even if it's just inner worth, even if it's just purely psychological, representing the relations you have with yourself, it can lead to moments of blockages, moments of standstill, when you have to reconfigure and readapt everything because certain information reaches you from wherever external sources, and that tells you that the way you want to accomplish it is no longer possible. And the present moment, all of these energies are so very dynamic and changeable. We don't have the certainty, we don't have the security. Everything can change in the next 5 minutes, 180 degrees. So this is also a source of frustration and stress, and ultimately Mercury and Taurus tends to be quite rigid, so this Mars reminds Mercury, our mental spheres, don't make any plans set in stone because it can change every single second of the future. So basically it is like an encouragement for us to make sure that our plans, our calculations, our goals, whatever we want to accomplish, especially materially or regarding our worth or our values, is not rigid, and there is always room for improvisation, for readaptation. We're always open for the unexpected, that Uranus in Taurus as well. And whenever the situation might require us to get out of our comfort zones, to leave our position of power for the sake of evolution, for the sake of the future, we have to be willing to cooperate, because Uranus's presence in the sign of Taurus in the next 6 years or so is going to be setting this major theme for all of us in at least one area of our lives, where we cannot be rigid and we have to be open for change and to go with the flow and not to stay so immersed in our comfort zones in the next 6 years of our lives, because one can never know when that big opportunity, when that big flash of insight, when the inner or outer genius breaks out, and then we have to act, because that is going to be the moment when we make it. Now Neptune also sextiles both Mercury and the Sun, and this is a conversation of harmony, where Neptune is definitely going to provide the divine guidance, the intuition, a hint, a touch of the spirit, where we do not see things purely from a material perspective like Mercury and Taurus, but we always consider, for example, the well-being of others. We always think from a place of compassion, from a place of solidarity, from a place where we have to also be extremely aware of our emotions, our heart space, so to speak. For artists, for writers, for speakers, and for singers, this is a very, very beautiful aspect because it can provide divine inspiration, creativity, all the right ideas, all the right guidance, even synchronicities. So this is a really, really good creative aspect because that Mercury and Sun in Taurus in an earth sign represents also, among any other things, creativity, where the creativity is expressed materially and ultimately it can lead to success and material gains or to add to your personal value, even if it's not like money, but it can add a great value, a great addition to your portfolio, for example, if you're an artist. So creating in this moment is definitely encouraged by the stars. And there is another trine in the sky, a trine being a conversation of supreme harmony, where Mercury also receives a trine from Jupiter, but this trine is not yet very powerful, it is not exact, but it can still represent a faint energy of blessing, of good fortune, maybe someone influential, someone who holds power, someone who holds truth, someone who holds influence maybe, can be a guiding force in your life. They can enter your life and help you in so many very different ways, either with an advice, for example, with clarity, legal help, or it can also represent authorities, government, local council, organizations providing help for, like, for example, a certain category of disadvantaged people. And this can also represent a good opportunity to receive some help, or at least to know that someone is there for you in case you fall on hard times, that it's not gonna be the end of the road. There is always light at the end of the tunnel. So this can also represent optimism, faith, hopes for the future, and these hopes are going to be like palpable, not just wishful thinking, because Jupiter is in the earthly sign of Capricorn, so it has to be real and palpable. This is why this energy is so comforting, because even the knowledge sometimes that there is a backup plan, that, you know, government has this covered one way or another, is also a very comforting thought, which can enable you to plan worry free, knowing that in case something bad happens, in case you lose out, in case you hit hard times, that there is help out there. But very personally, this can represent an acquaintance or meeting a very influential person who can offer you help or advice, or it can be a big professional, and all of this can be a moment of good fortune. But at the same time, speaking about your problems, your difficulties, whatever you are facing, because that Mercury is also sextiled by Neptune, so compassion, solidarity, sharing your problems basically can attract help. That Jupiter in Capricorn with Pluto in Capricorn can attract help, solidarity, compassion, practical aid, for example, in the most surprising manners. Of course, this is just the start of this energy and this celestial configuration, because it's going to get more intense and more powerful, more relevant, more material in the sense of material effects in the close future, towards the end of the week and next week. And of course, I'll be here to guide you each and every step of the way. Let's get to the tarot reading, and it's opened by the Seven of Coins, which is the card of harvest. It can also be karmic reward, but it can also represent your relations with your financial situation, with your material life, with all the worth and value that you have in your life. And this card is followed by the Fool, and that is a very powerful combination, because it speaks that the effect of the full moon we had yesterday, which was also not just a revelatory energy, but also it placed our focus on the Taurus and Scorpio axis, which is very financial and material. So some people have definitely found their truth, found their preferences, found whatever they wish to live in the future, especially materially, however they would like their material situation to look like. And even though for most people it is just the feeling of it, it is just something internal, they might not have even processed it rationally, as in, how am I gonna achieve this? How am I gonna accomplish this? How is my future actually going to lead me to live everything that I desire? But even the feeling is very important, because as the Fool card suggests, most people just found deep within themselves that they just need a new and fresh beginning in their lives, and they might not even care how or in which way that is going to look like, but they just want to experience, they just want to embrace something totally new, something totally fresh. They just want to evade 100% out of the old normality, out of their old lives, which from very many perspective was like a prison. The Seven of Coins is also a card which has much to do with nature, which has much to do with the physical earth, as in maybe agriculture, harvest, as in a very direct manner. So some people have actually figured out that they wish to live a life much more in tune with nature, maybe start their own business, start their own gardens, have a little land for themselves where they can grow stuff, where they can, just be with nature and experiment together with her. May it be just growing flowers, may it be just growing aromatic plants, but this element of life, of just having moments each and every day to be in natural surrounding, to just be surrounded by elements of nature, by life, by other creatures, may it be animals, plants, or nature seen as one living organism. Some people may be attracted by forests, other people might be attracted by bigger, farms where they're owned by many families and they just cooperate. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is going back to an older way of living life, but that old isn't the traditional old, but is something totally unique to every single person. Of course, some people don't want to settle down at all. For some people, this is like a big wake-up call that they just want to travel and explore the world for the rest of their lives. But either way, this was a very revelatory energy where it just awoke something deep inside from very many people, causing them to break free from their old normalities. And very ironically, the Prince of Coins, a very material card, which might speak about money and opportunities which have to do with money, money as in cash, money as in the material resource of transaction. And they just discovered, if this is an appropriate word to use, that they don't really care that much about money itself, or maybe they do care very much about money in the sense that they no longer wish for money to be limiting them, for money to buy them, for money to be more important than the time of their lives. So for some people, this changed 180% their relationship to money, where they just need prosperity and flow and not as much the currency to be always permanently in their hands, because they want to enjoy and taste life, not calculate, not be an accountant for the rest of their lives. They don't want to depend that much on cash flow. They don't want to depend that much on a stable and guaranteed source of income. And that Fool has much to do with risk. It has much to do with the heart space, because when you risk for something, you have to love the possibility for which you're risking for. So this kind of represented that many people have taken off their shackle psychologically and are now seeking a totally different lifestyle. Now, of course, this, whatever they're seeking, this totally different lifestyle this totally different normality is not yet palpable. Even the idea how they want to experience it not yet, possible, because the idea doesn't exist yet, the palpable mathematical idea how you're going to actually accomplish this. But what is relevant, that when something is born purely in the heart space, in the heart, well then that kind of energy definitely represents where there is a will, there is a way. And when that will is infused with like deep soul level love, deep soul level attraction, that this is what you want to do, it doesn't matter how, well then that usually comes into existence one way or another. The moment for big brainstorming, the moment for this to be manifested physically is yet to come, because there have to be like groundbreakers, there have to be certain individuals which come up with the idea and they exemplify it through their own life and way of living, and that is going to inspire the masses to join. That is just going to give the blueprint to other people to do the same. And basically this is what all of us are waiting for, the groundbreakers to appear and for them to accomplish this, so that the other people, the rest, can follow and add their own unique touch to it. Now the reading is closed by the Ace of Coins and the Five of Swords, and this speaks about a totally different thing which has absolutely nothing to do with anything that I have spoke about until this present moment. This is more like a big warning sign for all of us to be extremely careful, because in the present moment, due to that Venus and Neptune square and all this powerful Plutonic energy, there is a big risk that cons and frauds and fraudulent activities, manipulation, money laundering, phishing scams over the internet can enter our lives, and there is a risk that we might fall victims to it, because this very powerful Pluto makes them so masterful, makes them, weave together the plan and the deception so well that we can actually become victims of fraudsters, of criminals, of dishonest people who wanna, deceive us and take our money. And this does affect our material situation, because it's the Ace of Coins. It is our material stability and normality. So this is a warning sign to be very, very, very careful who and what you trust in the coming days, because there is a lot of fraudulent activity on the internet. And this has nothing to do, with the coronavirus situation and the government and all the conspiracies. This is just the fraudsters, people who always been dishonest and who always made a living like this. They are in power much more than at any other time. So this is where we have to be diligent. This is where we have to be really careful. This is when something appears way too good to be true, well, chances are it is. So this is basically like a warning from the universe for us to be extremely aware, mindful and diligent of whatever transactions and whatever activity we perform on the internet, especially if it has anything to do with money and banks and all that, because there is a heightened risk, heightened danger in the world in the present moment. Well, thank you so much for listening. I hope that the yesterday's very magical and revelatory full moon blessed your life and it offered you some kind of guidance and clarity. And of course, thank you for being here, thank you for listening, thank you for your support. Wish everyone a blessed and safe day. Until next time, bye for now.